Okay, I'm going to go down a petition form here, FL100, and I'm just not going to go over the entire form. I'm just going to talk about where the errors that people are making, the most common errors. So number one, where it says petition for, and sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking up at the form here. I have 4 monitors, so I got a lot going on. But where it says petition for, sometimes people just forget to they'll put dissolution. They'll just mark that first box, but they will not mark marriage. Number one, people usually get that right. We are married. Then you have the residency requirements. One or both of you meet the residency requirements. Statistical facts. Here's where people make an issue. 2 things here at least. One, they'll put a date of marriage and leave the date of separation out because they're still living together. So they assume, well, we're not separated, so I'm not going to put a date of separation. That's error number one. You always put a date of separation in there. Even if you're still living together, either it's a date you guys talked about the divorce, or if nothing less, the date you are filing, you're filling out the form and you're going to go file your paperwork with the court. Number 2, on statistical facts, excuse me, bear with me 1 minute, is underneath that. So you have date of marriage, date of separation, and then it says 3, time from date of marriage to date of separation, specify years and months. People forget to make that calculation. It's a reject issue if you don't put the actual date, the amount of years and months of marriage. Okay, I think that's it for page number 1. Page number 2, on legal grounds, people will just mark the divorce box. But you have to make a selection, and the selection is always going to be irreconcilable differences. So don't forget to mark that box, irreconcilable differences. For child custody, sometimes people leave that blank. If you have kids, don't leave that blank. Choose joint legal and joint physical, or whatever your preference is for your case. Child support, number 7. There's nothing you should ever write in there, but we'll see people who start their own divorce prior to hiring me, and I review their documents. They'll mark other and write no child support. You can't do that. You can't have no child support. It can be reserved, but it's not something that you would include in the petition. Spousal support. You need to mark these boxes. You cannot leave them blank. You're either going to request spouse support payable to petitioner or respondent, or you're going to terminate the court's ability to award spouse support to petitioner or respondent, or reserve. Don't mark other, and don't mark the other box and put no support. You got to mark one of those boxes, particularly if it's a default no agreement case. You cannot miss those, or you're going to have to amend your petition, because here's the theory. You left that blank. You filed your petition. Now you want to file the default without an agreement, and now you want to terminate spouse support, or maybe you want to request spouse support. You can't do that because you didn't ask for it in the petition. And the theory with a default without an agreement is that the respondent agrees to the petition, therefore they're not going to file a response. So you can't ask for anything in the judgment that you didn't ask for in the petition. There'd be a case you have to amend your petition. One note on that: if you have a long-term marriage over 10 years and you know it's going to be a default, no agreement, your spouse isn't going to participate, cooperate, or fight it, you have to reserve jurisdiction for both parties. It's the law, it's the rule. You cannot terminate without agreement on long-term marriages. Number 9, separate property. I think the mistake I would say is don't attach the property declarations. They cause all kinds of problems for people when you attach them. If it's a default with no agreement, you have to, because if there are assets and debts. Otherwise, just put none. But if it's going to be a default without an agreement, you have to complete the property declarations and indicate who's keeping what asset or debt on the separate. Same goes for the community. You need to attach them if there's assets and debts. And when there's default no agreement, you have to divide the assets and debts equally. Number 11, other requests not required. You don't have to mark who's going to pay attorney's fees. If you want to restore your maiden name, you can plug that in there, but those other requests are not required. That's really where we will see the issues on the petition. So just watch out for that. Hopefully that helps. Like I said, this guy filed it 3 separate times and still made mistakes.